Good to have you along this morning for this sort of Q2 workshop. And my philosophy with this is I think it's really important that we plan this run to Christmas, so that you close out 2025 and set up for financial year 20, well, for calendar year 2026. And the reason for that is I've found at different times that if you don't finish strong, then it takes a while to get ramped up next year because most of January's gone. By the time you then ramp up business and stuff, you're sort of in February, March. So you've almost blown the first quarter. And by mistake, I found out that if I that if I started doing my planning now and building things for that period, then what I ended up with was much better outcomes in in the early part of the year. So I started booking workshops and all that sort of stuff. We're all booked up in November, ready to get started in January, February. And that's particularly important because, not only is January a slow month generally, but often December is as well. As people get busy and they get on that sprint and close out, they often don't have time to do things that they're looking for. So I find this is an important part of the year. And I'll just sort of step you through, the process. So for me, planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now, right? So it's planning is just the process. The plan is not nearly as important as the process. I find so going through the process of the thinking and all that stuff that we need to do is just as important or more important than nearly anything else. So the agenda for today then to think through this, just some key concepts. I'm just going to go over some of those key concepts again. Reflect on your annual plan. We'll talk about setting up your 90-day now, where, and how. I want to talk a little bit about leadership energy. I'm finding a lot of my clients at the moment, it's a challenge for us, and then we'll wrap up. All right. So the workbook, you should have got a copy of the workbook manual that was there for you to download. It's editable, printable. So use it however you like. If you type into it and that's how you do your thinking, that's fine. Otherwise, print it out and write on it is the old school way of doing it. It's set up for both those things. Okay, so some key concepts. Now where, how, it's the basis of all good planning and problem solving routines. Where are we now? Where do we want to be in the future? And how are we going to get there? And if I'm honest, I spend more time with my clients talking about the where before we move to the how than anything else, because the where is what provides context for the how. And if you find that you've got the same problem happening over and over again, it's because you're bouncing between the now and the how. Yeah. So you're actually not addressing the issues in the now. Well, you are. You may be addressing the wrong issues. You may be treating symptoms, not causes, is what I find. And therefore, we put the where in place and we start to think about it. And some of the issues that you're trying to work with in the now are just annoyances that will go away if you fix some of the bigger picture stuff. So I find that short-term irritation can actually be a major driver of what you do, but often it shouldn't be that. Yeah. So for me, it's that whole piece of making sure that we've got this sort of now where, how mapped out. Let's spend a bit of time talking about the where as we go through, and then the how is important as well. The other thing with all this is this must, should, could process. So I love it as a general tool for, what must I be doing? What should I be doing? What could I be doing? And I've sort of looked at it in a couple of different ways. One of the ways I've looked at it personally is to go, what are the four things that I must do if I'm going to be successful in my business? The things I probably should do daily in my business. And they are, I've got to do some client work. I've got to do some marketing and sales stuff. I've got to do some process improvement and working with my team, and then I've got to work on me and transform me. And they're the sort of 3, 4 things that I need to do. And what I try and do is do some of those every day. Most of those I try and tick off something every day. Yeah, and that just gives me that bigger framework. But then you drop down to the 90-day planning journals and stuff, and that's about that. Well, what must I do today? What are the musts I've got to get done today, as opposed to all the things I could potentially do today? Out of that big list, what are the musts? So I find it's a tool you can use at a 90-day level, a daily level, whatever, to say, hang on a second, what are the big must-dos? When I sit down with clients and we build a strategic plan or an annual plan, one of the first questions I ask is, what are the priorities here? We've got lots of things we could be doing and should be doing, but what's the absolute priorities? What are the must-dos in this plan? And we'll go through and highlight those. So I encourage you to use must, should, could as that sort of ranking strategy. The other thing is make sure we're cascading our plans and getting the detail at the right level. And if we start over here at the highly strategic end, we might even have a 10-year vision that leads into our, 3 to 5 year plan. We then have an annual operating plan. We cascade that down to a 90-day plan, and from there we can go to monthly, weekly, and daily plans. And I find that this nexus here is probably really critical for long-term planning for your business. So let's be clear on where we're going to be in the next year. And then what do we have to, if that's where we're going to be in a year's time, where do we need to be in 90 days? In the next 90 days, where do we need to be? And if I think about those things, then that all of a sudden makes things a lot clearer. And then, of course, when you want to get down to execution and operation, you need to go, if that's where I want to be in 90 days, what do I need to do in the next month? That's where I want to be in the next month. What do I need to do in the next week? This is what I do this week. What do I do today that's all going to get those things? And what you end up with is the shorter the time frame, the more action oriented the detail is. So the more detail at this level, less detail at this level. But I've seen strategic plans that are as big as a phone book. Um, and for me, that's a complete waste because, like I've literally seen strategic plans from larger organizations where we've mapped out what people are going to be doing in 5 years' time, in September, 5 years' time, and who's going to be doing it and when. So we've got detailed project plans going out that far. It's too much detail in a strategic plan. Yeah. So we better have to have less detail here, some detail here, a bit more detail here, and a lot more detail here on what we're doing. And at the weekly sort of end, that's where we end up with the weekly ends where we end up with a lot more of this um, a lot more of the detail. Yeah. Sorry, I was letting a few more people in. Um, so so this cascading the plan stuff is really important, and making sure you've got the detail at the right level is the other piece that's really important. So getting the detail at the right level is absolutely critical. All right. So there's some of the important concepts. Now it's just a time to reflect on your annual plan. So this is session's all about building a 90-day plan. In the workshop notes and the pre-work we sent you, there's some links to do an annual plan if you don't already have one. But now it's just time to reflect on that and just say, righto, so what are the key issues? And this is the sort of standard model that I use for annual planning. What are the key issues? What are the big where things we need to think about? What are the big rocks? And the big rocks, we'll talk about more about that stuff as we move forward. But what are the things we need to focus on? And then for each of those, what strategies and actions sit under those at that annual level? So I don't want to get lost too much in the detail here. Who should be doing them and when? What sort of resources, people, capital might we need additional to what we've currently got? So for me, that's the overarching template. All right, and sorry, and I guess if you haven't done one of those at the moment, it's probably a good idea to do it. And I guess the thinking I'd like you to think about, and just take even a couple of minutes to do that now, is to think about what are the big rocks, right? What are the 3 or 4 things that I need to focus on in the next year? If I'm going to be successful, what are the 3 or 4 things that I'm going to focus on? And for me, there's a couple of checklists for those. There's normally something around marketing, sales, more business. There's often something about process improvement. There's something about a team, usually about people in a team. And then there's an optional one, which can be around capital, merger, acquisitions, technology, all that sort of stuff. There's a thing. But those first 3 are probably the big rocks. So just take a second just to make a note on, what are certainly the 3 or 4 big rocks that are going to be important for you and your business.
So what happened at work? They did start at night. I did start at night, but he had technical
Hello.
issues.
Oh,
Oh, you're on. Yes. Hey? Oh, sorry.
hello there.
Hey, Russ, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll turn off my mic.
Yeah, it's okay. Apologies, folks. I did have a technical issue, and it was supposed to start at 9, but the technical issue was I thought it was starting at 10. So my apologies.
So that was a human technical issue.
My team were on the job, and Russell wasn't up to it, I'm afraid. And then, of course, I'm not in the office, and therefore I had to travel to. I had to race to the venue that I was doing it. So I've got a whole heap of other people entering now. So anyway, I don't know what quite we're going to do about this anyway. I think some people are turning up at 10 and some people turning up at 9. Hi, Anita. Apologies.
Good morning, no problem. And as I said to Nick, it happens to the best of us,
It's just
especially in the first week back from daylight savings. It's so confusing.
I can't even blame daylight saving. I'm sorry. It was a complete Russell error. My team were on the
Oh,
board
no.
and I wasn't. I put it in my diary for the wrong time. Anyway,
Oh, well,
my
it
apologies.
happens.
Anyway,
No worries. Thank you.
and make it worse, I'm away on my motorbike traveling, so I had to. I'm at a venue in Tamworth at the moment, and
Oh, very
I
nice.
had to actually then go get out of my motel and race here to start things up. So anyway, what a day.
Oh, that's all right. It just makes it different. It doesn't make it
It
worse.
does. It does. So I've just done a bit of an intro, and now I'm just getting people to think about their annual operating plan, but particularly just have a think about what are the 3 or 4 things, the big rocks I call them, that you need to focus on in the next year, and of course they'll cascade down into the next 90 days. But so we'll
Mm.
move into the 90-day planning now, but that annual plan just sets that, and there was a link to a video and a template in the pre-work that you could go and do your annual plan for if you haven't already got
Yeah, so I did that. I have to say the link wasn't working, so I ended up just recreating it.
one. Okay. So the link
But
to the template wasn't working?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I tried it a couple of times, but that was fine, and everything else has been fine. But I guess my first question, if I could already jump in with a question,
Sure.
is what are the difference between goals and big rocks?
The difference, um,
Yeah,
um, for me, the difference is, sorry, just give me a second.
sure.
Uh, so, so there's not that much difference. You can call it whatever you like. Objectives, goals, whatever. I just find I like the big rock concept, which I borrowed from Stephen Covey's Seven Habits book, and for
Yeah,
me, it's just this thing of what are the big things I need to focus on, whereas I think goals can be far, and
okay.
they're
Yeah,
necessarily broad, right? Whereas
yeah,
you can go from a big rock to a goal or a strategy. Probably I like the next step. So I don't mind what you call it. You can call it a goal if you like, and or an objective if you like. But for me, it's that big picture sort of things. But I find when people set goals, they often think smart goals. And the problem with a smart goal is you drive straight to the detail. Yeah.
mm,
And for me, having the detail at the right level is the right point. And a smart goal for me is something that should appear later almost as a KPI or a key measure, as
yeah.
opposed to
Okay.
the good, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? By the
Yeah,
time you
yeah.
go through the
It
SMART
was just
acronym.
that because the goals were on the 90-day plan and then it had the big rocks.
Okay.
So I could see a distinction, and I
Yeah.
still can see the distinction
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're the things that we need to put into that vessel
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
and put in place in order to achieve the
Yeah.
goals, I
So for me, a
guess.
goal is something that we want to achieve over a longer period of time, whereas a big rock
Yeah,
is more focused on, the next
yeah,
12 months, maybe 2 years. Probably that's
yeah.
that's a better
Okay.
thing for me.
No, that's good. It's already been really helpful, your template. So thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Um, we might just push on then. Mindful of I've wasted enough of you people's time as it is. So let's set the tone for Q2. And as I said at the start, I see this as a really important um, quarter for the year because it does really set you up for a great start for the next quarter, which can be a bit messy. By the time we have a slow December, slow January, you actually can lose some momentum, and if you build the momentum now, then you're fine. And I found that's really important. So when my first daughter was born, she was due in late January. I decided I was going to come back to work instead of taking most of January off like I normally do. I was going to come back to work at the start of the year, just after New Year's, and work through up until she was born, and then take time off to be with her. It was really interesting. Everybody said, "Oh, there's nobody around at that time." I had workshops in government in defence booked on the 3rd of January, um, because I let people know that I was available, and that's what I was around and that sort of stuff. All of a sudden, all this work just materialised. I had a really busy January, whereas everybody was telling me that wasn't going to be the case. But I started marketing it back in September. So think about that. So here's the 90-day plan. Um, oh, I see where the goals thing jump in there. Yeah. So the model for me, I guess, is just the goals are those big picture things you're aiming for. Then the key measures sort of drop out of those. But the big rocks are what really happens, and then we want to be thinking around what are the 90-day actions we need to take and to move forward. Yeah. So let's just talk about the now. So the pre-work, we talked about doing some diagnostics in the workbook. I didn't see too many come through, so I know not many of you got to do the diagnostics. I get notified when a diagnostic comes through, but they're a great tool just as a quick snapshot. So most of them are 25 questions, and you just rate yourself against that particular question out of a 0 to 5 sort of model. And what it does is just give you a quick snapshot of some of the strengths in your business in a particular area and some of the weaknesses and some of the things you might need to focus on. So it's a quick self-assessment. Um, and sometimes it just gives you some insights and other things. One of the things that I found really powerful lately is if you anonymize the data by just selecting the pages that have probably got only your first name on them and printing those to a PDF, you can upload them into the AI of your choice and say, analyze this for me and give me some of the key issues that I need to be thinking about in my business. And it'll does a really good job of pulling those assessments together for you and giving you a coherent view of them. So a little tip there for using AI. I use it quite a lot. But anonymize your data first if you're worried about it. The challenge with that is there's nothing really commercially sensitive in it as well. So it's just your impression of what's going on in your business. But just be careful. So the pre-work just sets things up, and then now summary is then I think, as I mentioned, understanding where the challenges are for you now is important, but I don't believe in doing a lot of analysis and spending a lot of time in this area. My experience over the last 40 years is that if you ask yourself the right questions and you're honest with yourself, that you know what's wrong with your business. You know the things you need to work on and the things you need to address. And those things will come front of mind for you, and writing those down. And then so my sort of, I guess my initial thoughts are just, make a note, make some notes, think through what's going on for your business, all that sort of stuff. What are the top 3 issues that you think you need to address in the coming 90 days? So what's pressing for you at the moment and what it is? How important is it to do that? And are they must do's? And if you've got a list of 10 things, I'd suggest you focus on 3 or 4 as must do's. Yeah. So think through the now, what's happening now, everything else. So you can do more analysis if you like and do diagnostics and financial analysis, go and talk to your accountant, do a whole heap of stuff. That's all good to do, but don't I guess substitute that for using your own intuition and gut feel to understand what is really important in your business. Sometimes having an objective view, the outside view is a bit useful because sometimes we can go down a rabbit hole and get caught in a particular paradigm, and we start thinking about that's the only problem with my business, or we're focusing on stuff that's really not that important. That's not going to move us forward. Yeah. The common one I see all the time is people say, "Oh, I have to have a new website and everything else." Like, "Oh, yeah, what's that?" They go, "Oh, because this and that." I go, "How much work comes from people from your website already?" "I don't get any." And I go, "Okay, so it might be something we need to work on, but what other things will give you an immediate result? What could you ramp up that's actually bringing you plenty of work at the moment and bring up another 10%? lift your business by another 10%. So think about the important issues and the things that are really going to make a difference for you, rather than, I think, listening to the great unwashed out there and lots of their views on social media about the things you need to do to be successful in business. I think there's a lot of hype out there about stuff that is from people trying to sell you something. So be careful about that.
So pause the video, go off and do the exercise. When you're happy with what you've done, simply restart the video and we'll continue on with the program.
Were there any common issues across your group that that you're going to focus on in the next 90 days? Anybody want to volunteer? Something that they thought was important that you might want to agree with? Yeah, thanks, Alvin.
Yes, I think leverage is key nowadays, and it's something that I haven't been great at. However, thankfully, I've got Nick Cree on the team, and he has a great eye connection platform, which is a Go High Level product. And I really want to work out the whole workflow around the Mass Media Mastery program I have, which has been very manual. I've had it for 10 years, and I want to do a landing page and do the whole workflow around that and systemize it and automate it through eye connection with Nick. So that's the focus for me.
All right, excellent. Cool. Any other common issues?
Yeah, I share that one of Allwyn, and also I liked. I was in David and Jenny's group, and David mentioned about planning ahead. That need to, even when you get some work under the belt, look forward to that next period that comes after that.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you do have to start thinking about that. And I think one of the things to think about there is how do you maintain your marketing and all that sort of stuff when you're really busy. So otherwise, my experience is you end up in what we call feast and famine mode, where you do a heap of marketing and then you get a heap of business and you stop marketing, and then that business all slows down or the project's finished or whatever, and all of a sudden then you've got to do a whole lot more marketing, and I find you end up in this feast and famine. So how can you be far more consistent with your marketing?
Well, that's where Nick and Jenny come in, because I did some courses with them. I'm going to give them a big shout out now. I told Nick yesterday I did a Canva course with them last year and an AI course this year, so I know now how to create my 6 months of marketing content over summer, so that when I get into my busy period, I don't even have to think about it. So thank you again, excellent. Nick and Jenny. It's really amazing what Go High Level can do.
Yeah. Just while you're getting a plug, Nick, is that something that other people that he could access?
100%. So thanks, Anita and Aldrin. And I've got a leaking tap at home as well too, which means that I'm also I'm the plumber that's implementing all the systems in our business. So we've got all this automated marketing happening. But the good thing is in teaching it all, I actually have to do it as I'm teaching it as well. Yeah, so my real focus is really about, I'm not very good at starting things. I'm really good at ideas. I'm not very good at starting. I'm really good at execution. I'm also not very good at finishing things. So I'm good in the middle part.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that I've managed to sort that out is by programming things in that have to happen, and then I just turn up and do it. So at the moment, we've got a series of weekly webinars every Thursday morning. And so if I get to Wednesday and I haven't got a topic or I haven't got it planned, I've actually got to do something. So fortunately, it's all worked out pretty well, and but I'm thinking about it constantly during the week to ensure that I've got something that is relevant, and I'm always listening to people like Anita and Aldrin to get some ideas for what are people struggling with, what do they need help with, and then sort of delivering on that there.
Great stuff. Nick, can you send me some links to your programs, and I'll make sure that goes out in the reference materials?
All right, thanks for that. Yes, I'll do that. Thank you.
Because I think that Nita makes a really important point. The momentum is really important to maintain that momentum, put those systems in place. Otherwise, you do run into, and David's point is perfect in that space. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So we'll just
I had a quick question.
Sorry. Go on. Sorry.
Um,
I don't see
so
the hands up, so you'll just have to call out.
So to answer your question, Russ, yes, Nick offers a 1 month trial of the CRM. So if anyone wants to jump on that, they can definitely do that.
Excellent.
And one of the common things that come up, I guess, for a lot of people in business is that lag time over Christmas,
Yeah.
where things sort of slow down. So I'm just curious, you've been around the block a few times, what kind of sort of contingencies or things you think about to either plan for this in advance that you know that it's going to happen, or to capitalize on it knowing that people are in their downtime and you can still make money or offer things in that time.
Yeah. So what I've done, as I mentioned, is and you'll probably notice I'm doing a bit of that now. I'm ramping my marketing now, in preparation for feeding that sort of locking in work in that period next year. And I've only just started to get into it, probably a week or so ago, and week or two ago, and I've already got a reasonable amount of work plugged in for February now. Already, so I've got a couple of decent jobs that have just dropped in my lap, which I wasn't expecting, from that. And then, so for me, it's part of that contact program. So I ramp up my contact program. So on my website, it's the 90-day contact program. I'll put that in the resources. And it's what, we've been talking about. It's just a methodology for helping you be consistent with your marketing and your contacts. But more than just social media posts and all that sort of stuff, it's also about picking up the phone and calling people that you haven't been in touch with for a while, having a conversation with them, not selling to them at all. It's not a selling process, it's a relationship building process. So how do we build deeper relationships with people? So pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, Mary, it's been a while since I've spoken to you. We just wonder what you're up to, and have a chat with them. And I find from those conversations that work flows. And where I've had clients do it, they just go, I can't believe how easy it is, because the first, 5 people I rang, 3 of them said, I'm glad you called because there's something I want you to do for me. So, I feel it's just that building that momentum now. So ramp your socials, but ramp also your networking and your one-to-one. I sort of have a model that says, for marketing, you should be doing some networking, getting out and talking to like-minded people, either referral partners and or potential customers. You should be doing some one-to-one calls, coffees, all that sort of stuff. Some of that will drop out of your existing network. Some of it will drop out of your networking. And then you need to do some broadcast activities, which we're talking about here. So these webinars are a broadcast activity for me. But I also do some social posts and some blogs and other things. That's all part of my outbound networking, outbound broadcast program as well. So you need to have all three covered, I do believe. Yeah. All right. So
Thank you. That was very valuable. Thank you.
good. All right. Thank you. All right. Welcome, Steve. Apologies for the timing, mate. I've stuffed up completely. I'll explain it to you later. All right. So let's just move on. So for me, the key issues in the 90-day plan, quick summary of them up in this corner here, right? So just update your plan, plug in your key issues. These are the 3 or 4 issues that are important for you, right? It doesn't have to be war and peace. It just has to be summary, because I see the 1-page plan as the executive summary of your notes, right? So in your journal, we talked about journals on the thing the other day. But in your journal, that's where I write all my notes. That's where I write down all the issues in the now, my vision for the where, and all that sort of stuff. And then this page here is just the executive summary for that. So you may have all this other information elsewhere. All right. So we get the now summarized. Now we talk about the important stuff, the where we're heading. So setting some goals, right? So what are the big picture goals you need to set for next year? Your sales target, how much profit or income do you want to make? How many new clients do you want? What products do you want to sell? What sort of price? So that's where I sort of fit all those sort of things in, right? And then for each goal, I say, let's have a key measure, all right? At least one. And I find some things are difficult to measure, so you may need a basket of measures that give you an indication of whether they're happening, and they could be lead and lag indicators, right? So it could be, if you've got a sales target, you could measure that in sales dollars, But you could also just measure it in sales into new markets or to new customers or something like that, or average sale price per unit or something could be a key measure for you. So just think about what the measures are that are important for you, and then for that say, all right, so what's my annual target for that measure? Let's say it is just sales, just pure sales dollars. You might say my annual target is, I don't know, $250,000 and or 300, 400, 500 million dollars, I don't care what it is. What's your annual target? But what's my target for the next 90 days? Because even though your target might be $1 million for the next year, you might be starting from a low base. So think you're going to go quarter, just dividing it by 4 doesn't work, right? So you might say, well, this first quarter, if I get to 150 or 200,000, then I'll be really happy, right? But knowing you're going to ramp it in later quarters, all right? So have it out. Just think through some of the goals that you need to set and take some time around setting some of those goals. Any questions around goals and measures? Once you've got them, plug them in, map them out, right? So put them in here. This one connects with this one, connects with this one, right? So you want them across here. And I guess, these are some typical products that people may have, right? Work days per week. We're going to talk about burnout later. That's really important that we get on top of that. Okay, so map your goals, and then finalizing your where for me is really important. But these pieces are really important. So define, if I can speak properly, define a theme for the next 90 days. All right, that could be growth, consolidation, set up for success. I don't mind, something that means something to you, but set a theme that defines the next 90 days for you. What is that theme going to be? Because our brains find it easier to think in big concepts rather than all these numbers and all these things. So what's the theme going to be for you? What's your overarching focus going to be? And then the second one is to find a celebration or reward for hitting your target, right? That could be a new Maserati, it could be dinner out, it could be a spa day, it could be, I don't know, a walk on the beach. I don't mind. It doesn't have to be about spending money. It's about taking the time to stop and prop and celebrate that you've achieved what it is. And you may say, if I get within a certain percentage of my target, I'll set a stretch target of, whatever. But if I get to this level, I'll be really happy with it. Go and celebrate it because it's good for your psychology, your mental health, but it also fires off all the dopamine things in our brain, which our brains love, right? So just make sure we stop and celebrate. As Australians, we don't do that very well in general, right? The Americans celebrate just about everything. Australians, we don't. Yeah, we don't celebrate well. So make sure you take the time to celebrate. My wife is exceptionally good at making me go and celebrate stuff. She'll say, and sometimes it's just, we just have a nice dinner or do something. Dinner at home even doesn't matter. It's not about what you do. It's about the fact that you do it. Does that make sense? Okay. I might just get you to mute your microphones as well, just in case there's some noise in the background. All right. So that's the where. So any questions about the where before we move on? Let's keep rolling, shall we? So the how. The how is where the rubber really hits the road in the plan, right? So this is where we get down to the actions. What the hell are we going to do that's going to move us from where we are now to where we want to be? All right. So the big rocks. We talked about big rocks before, but it's a powerful metaphor taken from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Still one of the best books I've ever read. I've just read it recently again with a group of clients. It's a very deep book. It's much deeper than I remember, and there's so much more in it than whatever, but I've read it a few times now. It fundamentally changed my life, that book, so I have a lot of time for Mr. Covey and his book. But the one of the things there he talks about is if you've got a large container and you've got to put some big rocks in it, some smaller rocks, some gravel, some sand and some water into it. If you don't put the big rocks in first, then they won't fit. Yeah, and that's really important. And as an exercise, just recently, I don't think I have a photo of it in this PowerPoint, but I'll have to incorporate it. My wife we used to live on the beach in Bundaberg, and she would do a bit of beach combing and come back with all these fishing lures and bits of driftwood and stuff that she would find, and nice, different shells and stuff, and she'd bring them up and put them in a container. And that container got filled up with water just recently outside in the rain, so she tipped it all out and then tried to put everything back in, and it wouldn't fit. So I actually took it as a thing, took a photo of it all, and then I put the big stuff in first and then put all the other stuff in, and guess what? It all fitted with plenty of room. So works in practice as well as reality. But the important thing is, what are the big rocks that are going to be important for you in your business? All right. And big rock areas, I said before, marketing and sales, there's always something about operational efficiency, something about people and management, often something about finance, infrastructure, technology. All right. And I think the only other one there is to make sure is that if you don't have a separate development plan, most of my clients will have a separate leadership plan for them. But what are you doing to improve your leadership skills? So there could be, if often the number four is an optional one, and I would plug in there, build my leadership skills, or grow myself as a leader or something as that big rock number four. Or if you've got four already, just put five in. But you don't want to have too many big rocks, because these are your focus areas. These are the things you need to focus on. Make sense? All right. So you plug them in. If you've already got them in your annual operating plan, you can simply copy them from, over here on the plan up into up here on the plan, because they just copy across. And in that annual plan, they copy from the top down to here as well. So you can copy them across, but if not, you'll need to think through what your big rocks are for Q2. All right. So just have a think now quickly, and to write down 2 or 3 or 4 big rocks. They're the large actions to move you from now to where, and be quite specific about them. So, the examples down the bottom there, might be grow our business in Southeast Queensland, improve our productivity, engage the team, grow my leadership skills, upgrade our IT and systems. Start them all with a doing word. For those of you who went to Scone Primary School Year 6 with Mrs. Anderson, doing word's a verb. So, grow, improve, engage, those sorts of words, upgrade, start with a doing word and write a sentence. Don't just write down marketing, sales, whatever. That's not that sort of strategy. All right. Cool. So 2 minutes, write down 2 to 4 big rocks that are really important for you.
So pause the video, go off and do the exercise. When you're happy with what you've done, simply restart the video and we'll continue on with the program.
So anybody willing to share with us a big rock that they came up with that they think is important?
Yes, I'm happy to share. A big one for me at the moment is optimizing my YouTube channel. I've got 1,600 videos, or over 1,600 videos on there, and not that many subscribers really considering, and not that many views on a lot of my content, which is quite frustrating because there's a lot of great stuff there. So it's just, I think there's a lot of potential there to really get out to a lot more people. And I'm thinking of engaging a YouTube SEO expert to just manage that completely, rather than just leave it to my VA who's obviously not able to work it out. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alwyn. Anybody else want to share a big rock with us? Nick?
Yeah, I've got one. My big rock is 1,000 clients on our GHL system.
Cool.
The intermediate big rock is the 100 clients. So we're about a third of the way there.
Yeah,
so
good.
getting 100 clients in. So, that's my rock for this quarter, getting those 100.
Cool. And then we'll talk a bit how you get to some actions down the track. Great rock. Well done.
Yep.
Cool. Got room for one more if anybody else wants to share.
Yep, happy to.
Go, Dan.
My big rock really is to revive marketing and sales activity. Focused really on a couple of things: getting active again with content, and getting more conversations.
Perfect. So they become your strategies, right?
A mix of broadcasting content and one-on-one, just getting deeper engagement.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So they become your strategies, which we'll talk about in a second.
Great.
Cool. Nice one. Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, folks. Let's just have a look. If I can draw the PowerPoint, we'll be so much better off. So the next thing are what I call the strategic 90-day actions, right? So these are your sort of strategic actions, the big picture actions that we need to take. And if you're existing AOP, you can look down them. This is where I use the same sort of models. You look down them, and anything that's got a Q2 tag, you can just copy that over into your 90-day plan, because that's something you've already identified that you want to complete in quadrant 2. There may be then some rollovers from quadrant 1 that happen, but you add them in separately. So that's the quick way to do that. And in your annual operating plan, that's what they look like. So you'd be copying these Q2 ones and then punching them over into your 90-day plan. So then what we end up with in this 90-day plan is our big rocks, some strategic actions. So David's one there was, revitalize his marketing, improve, have more meetings basically. And the last one could be probably do more networking, David, you know what I mean? So to complement that. But you'll have them for each of these sort of areas, is thinking about what are the big actions I need to take in order the big actions I need to take in the next 90 days. And they could be actions that start in this next 90 days and roll over. I'm okay with that. But generally, you want to say, what stuff that I'm really going to get done in this next 90 days. All right. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? The 90 days. So, developing those strategic actions. And so the other thing I do is I use a sort of a numbering thing where I cascade down from big rocks to strategies to strategic actions, making sure that they connect across the annual operating plan and not. So take a minute or two, and just for every big rock you define, what are 2 or 3 big actions you need to take? Don't worry about wordsmithing them, making them perfect now. Just at least get the intent down, a bit like what David did, right? These are the 2 or 3 things I need to do. So just take a second and just think through, okay, what am I going to need to do? And Aldwin's one, engage a SEO specialist in this space, right? But there may be something else you also need to do on that. So think about the 2 or 3 big strategic actions that you need to take. All right. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to make some quick notes.
So pause the video, go off and do the exercise. When you're happy with what you've done, simply restart the video and we'll continue on with the program.
You notice that you might think I'm pushing through this reasonably swiftly. There's a reason for that. I find that most of the stuff you need to do is front of mind for you anyhow. And a lot of planning is getting in touch with your subconscious, right? So your subconscious mind has been processing all the stuff we've been talking about. As soon as I start talking about this stuff, I'm showing examples of plans and stuff. Your subconscious mind is starting to process this and coming up with ideas for you and what you need to do in your business. But often it's our conscious mind struggles to jump through the paradigms and the filters we've got in place to connect with it, to understand what's going on. So often if you just let it flow and just get in the mood and away you go, you'll find your planning will come really easily, because most of this stuff you've already thought about. And to be honest, it shouldn't be too complex. We're not talking about, rocket science here. We're talking about business, and most of the stuff we need to do is relatively simple. We just need to be consistent at it and be clear about what it is we're doing. But I don't think complexity is what it's about. So I find the simplest plans are often the best. And if you can just build a simple plan quickly, normally you already know what you need to do, and it's just about putting yourself in a position to write it down in a simple framework. Does that make sense? So anybody want to share a strategic action? You need to tell me what the big rock is and then one of your strategic actions.
I've got one, Russ. My one is the 100 clients.
Yep.
And one of the methods of getting that is just running educational webinar workshops. I just need to set the topics for the year. If I've got the topics set in my calendar, then it makes it easy for me to know what I'm delivering.
Yeah, excellent. And your friend ChatGPT can help you work those out.
Yeah, I've got a whole lot of people on my database that can help me too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. Very good. Thanks.
I started drafting you an email about 10 minutes ago, Nick, to send you an idea from the other day.
Oh, fabulous.
There you go.
Thank you.
Mr. Exit Ready, David.
Hello?
Yeah. So the
Oh,
big
no.
rock is to create purpose beyond business. Um, so the first action of that is actually create a presentation document of what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
The second part is a structure of an entity of what that would be, and then the third would be a list of, we'll just say, 12 roles and responsibilities that you would be looking for, say, ideal people that would be part of that.
Okay. Nice. Well done. Well done. Um, okay, that's good. Anybody else want to share? We've got probably got time for one more.
Mine's around workflow, so I'm going to improve my workflow and template structures.
Yeah.
So at the moment, my CRM's getting updated with new improvements, new changes to our workflow.
Yeah.
So it's about maintaining the updates with those, and I've got templates on the laptop that I should be transferring across into my CRM.
Yeah, good.
And using the templates from there instead of going backwards and forwards all the time. So it's
Yeah,
about
definitely.
transferring it all
Yeah,
over
good.
there and using the one system.
Yeah, good on you. Well done, Steve. Thank you. All right, so let's move on. So, and then if we got time, then we really need to get into the actions. Oh, you got to be careful about dropping into too many actions in here because it can become overwhelming, right? So I almost conclude this as almost an optional step for you. Let's get the big picture strategic actions right, and then put no more than 2 or 3 actions against each of those. But if you're not careful, we've now got you know 8 to 10 strategic actions. You start to put 2 or 3 things in here. You're starting to get a plan, but you've got 20 or 30 actions. I find that can become overwhelming. So I got to be honest, I will only put in actions if I really do need to be quite specific about some of the detail. And some of that detail doesn't need to live in my 90-day plan. I can put into my monthly plan or my weekly plans, what I'm going to do. I can look back and go, okay, what's the next step in this process? Um, but I'll leave that up to you to think through whether you need to put some actions in. Just be mindful that we want to have the detail at the right level. Too much detail at the 90-day level can be just too much. If you are going to put in, use that action that, start it with a doing word again, set up, create, whatever, and then define, if you've got a team of people, who's going to be responsible for ensuring the task is complete. That doesn't mean that person's responsible for doing the task. It means they're responsible for I guess, facilitating the task. So if you've got a team you work with, then I always I want somebody to be responsible for making sure it happens, but they don't have to do it. Whenever I see everybody on a plan, I know it's not going to get done because there's no responsibility. Nobody's going to take responsibility and be held accountable for making sure it happens. And then I like to put in the month that it's going to be done by, right? So when will we start it or when will we finish it? I don't mind which one you use. Month 1, month 2, month 3, or I do October, November, December in this particular quarter. All right. So that's the sort of actions piece. I'm not going to get you to do any actions now but that'll be something that you probably should come back to, add in some actions if you need to. All right. So what you're going to end up with something that's like this, a big rock, grow revenue, launch product X on Amazon, set up the Amazon uh, page and create a product landing page of the 2 things, right? But just be mindful, you don't want 20 or 30 actions here. It'll just get too overwhelming for you. All right. So just be really careful that if you've got lots of strategic actions, you're going to end up with lots and lots of actions, and that becomes overwhelming. All right. So, and that's pretty much our 90-day plan is, we've now got the 90-day plan. We're ready to focus on it and move ahead. All right. So the next thing to do then is to stop, prop, and reflect. Okay. We don't do enough of this. So I always just say, okay, now I've got the plan. Let's pull it out. Let's just stop for a second. Stop all the creative thinking and everything else, and just plop into reflection mode and just say, right, is the plan achievable? Right. I don't mind stretch targets. That's fine. But if they're patently unachievable, then let's just do something that's a bit realistic, because otherwise you'll just demoralize yourself, right? If Nick's target was not 1,000 businesses, it was 100,000 businesses on the go high level, I'm going to be saying that's probably not that achievable. But 1,000, it's a stretch, but yeah, it's doable, right? So it's good to have stretch targets. Just make sure that it's within your realm to achieve it with the time and resources you have at your fingertips. Yeah. The other important thing is, if I look down at my actions, will they enable us to meet 80% of the objectives? The targets, the big rocks, whatever it is we've set ourselves, will us allow to meet 80% of them? Because achieving 100% of them is not possible, right? Like, it very rarely happens. If that happens, you've probably been a bit too easy on yourself in terms of your planning. And I think just thinking it through, and for me, 80% is the new perfect, right? So if we're getting 80% of the way, that is a fantastic result. You know what I mean? So for most businesses, if they achieve 80% of the results they're looking for, it's been a great year, right? Provided they're the right results. Think about that. What's missing? Is there anything missing from the plan? I mean, I'll look at it and sit back and look at it. Have I left something really important out of this plan that needs to be in there? Have I included something that really doesn't need to be there? Am I just polishing the handrails on the Titanic? I've already got the deck chairs set up, but have I now just going on polishing the handrails? So just eliminate stuff, because all it creates is clutter and pressure in your mind, and all of a sudden you won't do it. It won't get it done, or it won't be important, and therefore you're wasting your energy focused on something else, right? So just think that through. What's missing and what should be eliminated. There may be nothing, but be objective about it. And then lastly, as I said, that question of, but what are the real priorities on this plan? There's lots of things I should be doing, could, must, should, could. What are the absolute musts? What are the absolute musts? And I would run through it with a highlighter and just highlight those musts on my plan. And you can do that with a digital highlighter or if you print it out and do it. So I use a Remarkable 2 tablet, so I just punch everything out as a PDF, and then I go through and sit there and I go through and annotate it, right, put red marks all over it, get out the highlighter and highlight it and deal with it. So this is a really important part of that process. So just where we are at the moment, just take a couple of minutes and just have a quick reflection on the big rocks and the strategic actions that you wrote down. And is what I'm proposing realistic? Will it help me achieve 80% of the objectives? What's missing? What must be eliminated? What's the real priority for me? The last question is the most important. Okay, so just take a minute to reflect on that.
So pause the video, go off and do the exercise. When you're happy with what you've done, simply restart the video and we'll continue on with the program.
All right, looks like I got you all back. That's excellent. Cool. So, were there anything interesting that you're willing to share that were things that you must do, things that you're focused on?
Yes, happy to share.
Sure.
Yes. Well, it's interesting. We're chatting about marketing, and every single month, something I'm committed to is doing the Global Good News Challenge, which is something I started 5 years ago to help decrease depression and suicide rates and lift the energy on the planet. And it's amazing how many people who've done it have been getting business from it. Yeah. I was just suggesting to our breakout room, because they were looking for marketing help, to leverage other people's audiences, because we share people's videos to thousands of people. So Global Good News Challenge is something that I do every month, and I always encourage people, if you want free marketing, to leverage audiences. So that is an ongoing thing for me. However, the big rock things I mentioned, the YouTube channel, optimizing that, using something like Opus Clip or something similar, just working out which platform is best, because there's things like video.io to break down long content videos down to short content to really optimize all the video content I have out there.
Yeah, good.
I've fallen a little bit behind getting all the show links to guests of the videos and audio of all the shows I've done. So we send people a whole list of how to best market the shows that we've done. So just getting onto that as well, which has kind of been like, it's important, but hasn't been urgent.
Yeah.
And the funnel workflow for the Mass Media Mastery program I mentioned, which I'll do with Nick. And then another big rock thing, which I've been avoiding, is getting my paperwork together for my accountant, which I know needs to happen at some stage in my life. So,
very good. Thanks for sharing. Will you share the link to the Good News Network for me?
Yeah, I will. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, and I'll put that in the thing. So, well done. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about, I think, a really important thing at the moment. And I'm finding that this notion of energy, you're burning bright or burning out. And a number of my clients at the moment, I think, are starting to the light is burning a little, not so bright, and starting to burn out a little bit. And it's just because we're pushing ourselves really hard. And I think it's important that we just take some time for ourselves. And I've certainly noticed, in my journey to improving my productivity and stuff, taking time for us is really important. And I'm actually off on a motorbike trip, as you might have guessed, with a mate. He approached me about it and said, "Hey, I'm going down here. Do you want to come with me? I've got to do some other stuff, and then we'll join in." And my first reaction was to say no, but I then went, "No, I'll make it happen." And I just moved a few things around, and all of a sudden I was able to do it. Mentally, I am so much better for doing it because I find motorbike riding for me is a bit of a meditation. I have to concentrate on the road and what we're doing, otherwise you end up fairly seriously injured. So I just find it's a way for me to really switch off, and that stuff's really important to me. So I know how important this is in our lives. So I wanted to just sort of talk about it. And I'm finding that energy and balance in your life matter, and I think that your business results are often a lag indicator of your energy and your focus, and pushing too hard burns up both energy, and I think it distorts your focus really a lot as well. So ignoring personal sustainability, poor decisions, reactivity, so become very reactive, not proactive, and often disengage teams because they're being really pushed all the time. If you've got a team, it can be really, really challenging. And I think that links to many of the challenges I see in small business, which is overwork, unclear boundaries, when are we working, when are we not working, all that sort of stuff. Working from home can be a real challenge for that, because it's just so easy to step into your office and do a bit more work and stay a bit longer and all that sort of stuff. So I think those unclear boundaries are really important. And we often end up with low recovery time, so we just don't take enough time for respite. Couple of diagnostics you could have done. They were in the links. There's a resilience diagnostic and then a life balance one. And life balance is one that I get most of my clients to do because I just think it's really important that we have this balance in our lives. And it's one of the things that I've built into all my plans. I think one of the benefits of running your own business is that you can actually shape your business around the lifestyle that you want. And for me, life balance has always been really important, and therefore I do make sure that I try and get balance. And my experience is life. You notice on the life balance, thing: finance, philosophy, mental health, family, social. There's one thing that's not there, and that's work, because I find this is what balances out the work. So I found I could work very, very hard, provided what I did outside of work was balanced, and gave me the balance to balance that out. But it takes effort and it takes time. And then resilience is your ability to bounce back. And I think it's important that we think about resilience as something that it's not a fixed thing. It's quite variable, and you need to be mindful of resilience and what you can do about that. And it's a number of factors: communication, self-awareness, energy, health, all sorts of stuff, right? So just thinking about those things are really important. Again, the diagnostics are just a simple, 20 questions, whatever it is, just to give yourself some subjective objectivity, right? Because it's not like somebody else is measuring on this. You're assessing yourself against it. So you'll either be too hard or too optimistic. I don't mind which you are, just as long as you're aware of it. You're either the Russian judge in the ice skating or the American judge, where you support everybody, or the Russians, the hard judge. Not being racist there. Apologies to anybody who's Russian. Now I think about that. But that's that. It's that whole sort of thing of where's the balance and what should we be doing. So just use it to give yourself a bit of a thing, a bit of I guess, an edge and a bit of a look. I find there's some real levers we can pull in terms of energy, and that's about health and habit. it's about mindsets and beliefs, and it's about connection and support. And so that, health and habits is making sure we're connected, that we're focused on, sleep, diet, exercise, all those important things. We've got good, healthy habits. I talk about, end of day habits, start of day habits, all those sort of things. I think it's important we put some of those things in place and we get some rituals that work for us. Mindset and beliefs, making sure that we're absolutely clear, we've got the right mindset, that we're understanding things like, if you're doing the positive intelligence stuff, what are the major saboteurs, that those little voices that sit in our shoulder and whisper in our ear? Who are the major drivers for me? What sort of impact are they having on me? How do I start to take control of that sort of stuff? Am I taking enough time for myself? And that can be part of the habits thing. For me, respite is really important. So when I look at all the behavioral profiles for me, I need to make sure that I take regular respite. Now, that's not taking 4 weeks holiday a year. That means, daily, weekly, what am I doing to make sure I switch off my brain? Yeah. And for me, I take a sauna. I have a little sauna at home, and I try and take a sauna 2 or 3 days a week, try and get out on the motorbike a bit. Probably not as exercising as much as I'd like, but I'm concentrating on diet and other things at the moment as well. So it's all about getting that balance right and that sort of stuff. The last thing is connection and support, and we are basically, herd animals, human beings. So we need to make sure that we connect with other human beings. You don't have to connect with everybody, but you need to have meaningful connections with the people that matter for you, and you need to, you be supportive of others and be able to take support from others. I think are really important levers that we can be pulling in this space. Yeah. And then I guess the self-check questions for me on this are, if you rated yourself out of 5 in terms of energy, health, connection, focus, where would you be? The question for me is, am I physically and mentally recharged? That's the energy and health piece. Connection, do I feel supported and connected? And then focus and resilience. Can I stay calm, clear, and strategic under pressure? Think about those sorts of questions. And I'm sure everybody's got a point of view on some of this stuff, and I know you've got a lot more expertise in this space than I do. So any sort of insights to some of this stuff that you think that you might want to offer to others, I think is a nice place to do it, because there's lots of good things we can be doing in this space.
Russ, if there's anything I would add, it's probably being more aware of your surroundings as well, and the people who you associate with. So in some cases that might mean closing down your social circle considerably, or evaluating how your interactions with certain people affect your energy, because some people are energy vampires.
Yeah.
And some people, if you've got a tendency to give, you might not even notice, but by the end of a conversation, you feel completely drained because you've given everything you have, and it's not necessarily to the right person or for the right reasons.
Yeah,
so I think being aware of people around us, and having good communication as well around that. So not being afraid to, remove yourself from situations or people that just drain your energy.
Yeah, that's a really valid point. Really valid point, Jen. Thank you.
And I think just to add to that is also paying attention then to what you expose yourself to as far as social media, the news, all of those other parameters as well, because that impacts too.
Yeah. My thing in life is ask better questions, right? Because I see people see stuff on social media and just take it as gospel. And just have a think about what they're suggesting for a second. It doesn't make any sense, but on the surface, it often does. So yeah, I think just being more questioning in general will really help. Aldwin?
Yes, I love this. I love that you're covering this because, having burnt out many times in my life, working in the media for over 20 years, it's been, very high adrenaline, go, go, go kind of lifestyle that I've had for many years. And it's been a real process for me to focus on my energy, my health. Like this morning, I just did a 2-hour beach and bush walk, had a swim in the ocean. I do that now 3 days a week, where I make time for that, for things like yoga. Last night, I did a sound bath, a gong sound bath healing out at Hippocrates Centre. I just put the Hippocrates link actually in the chat, because it's an amazing place here at Mudgeeraba for anyone who's in the Gold Coast area to actually just take some time out to to really focus on nurturing yourself and filling your own cup up so that you can bring more to your business.
Yeah, good, good. I find that stuff's really important. Yeah, I really do. And I'm like you. I burned out. That's how I ended up in Bundaberg. You know, I was working enormous hours in Canberra, and I actually thought I probably wasn't going to make it. I've got to be honest. And so I sold out of my partnership and moved to Bundaberg and lived on the beach for 2 years with my family and reacquainted them. So the kids were starting to call me Mister, and the dog was growling at me when I walked inside. So it was time to make some changes, which was good. And it was the best decision I've ever made. Yeah. Financially,
Yeah, yeah,
brilliant.
and I
But
think also
personally, the best thing I've ever done.
yeah, and I think like last night I was in hospital a few times. A very dear friend of mine, her mum is basically she's on the morphine. She'll be dying any minute, right?
Yep.
And last Friday she was fine. She was talking. She was fine. Everything was fine, and now she's just about dead. And I think the older we get, and the more I know for myself, the more I see people just dying around me, the more it's sort of a reminder as to, are you really on track with where you want to be? Are you really living your best life? Are you really doing what you want to be doing, right now? And I think there's no time like the present. And that's something also I've really been working on, is to be as present as possible with the people I'm with, because we never know when we'll see them again, potentially.
Yeah.
Whether any of us will be here even tomorrow,
Yeah, totally.
fragility of life.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thank you. Anita, you had your hand up. Something like this.
Yeah, I had my hand up, and it was this
Thank
here.
you.
I'm a bit of a driver in life, and so one of the things that you talk about, health and energy. So one of my recharges is getting up and going to the gym in the morning. But I often find when I come home from the gym that I'm sore. So I never spend a day that I'm not sore. So I can't actually relax at the gym. I just push myself as hard as I possibly can. And when I do relax, it's still above what other people's level is. So I'm just going to be conscious of that.
Yeah. It's really important. Really important.
Mm.
All right. So thank you. So I guess just choose one area that you're going to focus on this quarter. You don't have to choose more if you want to, right? But just think about it from your own perspective at the moment. You don't have to share this with anybody, but if you maybe I might get you to share it, but if your self score is low, set a target for what you want to do. Connections weak, think about what it is you want to do. Rebuild time for family, hobbies, fun, whatever it happens to be. Your mindset is shaky. Think about how can you use journaling or a no complaining challenge or positivity or positive intelligence, PQ reps or whatever it is to do that. And then I like to set a sustainability goal in your 90-day plan. By the end of this quarter, I will, have achieved something to do with one of these. So just take a minute to have a think about that.
So pause the video, go off and do the exercise. When you're happy with what you've done, simply restart the video and we'll continue on with the program.
Okay. So again, would somebody like to share one of the areas they're going to focus on? Don't feel obliged to, but is there anything you want to focus on in the next quarter from a personal perspective? Yeah. Nick, saw your hand up, Alwyn's hand up. There's a few other hands up, so let's just call out and go.
Sorry, I forgot to put my hand down, but but my sustainability, it's for me, it's the gym. Jenny and I take a day out every month to hang out with each other.
Nice.
And for me also cooking is one of those things. When I finish up for the day and go and cook the meal, that's part of my relaxation, especially if it's got a glass of wine with it.
Yep. Good. Yeah, and just making that part of your routine. Yeah, as I said, I try and have a sauna twice a week. Yeah, I find that's really important. Thank you. Sorry, there were some other hands up, but they may have been leftovers from before. Does anybody else want to share? And I forced Nick into it, but anybody else?
Always happy to share. Yep. For me, the theme is around finance this quarter and also around leveraging and letting go. So cleaning up my space, getting things complete that have been incomplete.
Yeah.
The finance, I say, is around the paperwork. So part of the, organizing my space will be also organizing my information for my taxes and then leverage. Where can I leverage more and make the most use of my time, or best use of my time?
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, sometimes finding that balance around health and energy and your presence in what you're doing. For me, I don't have a problem with maintaining daily exercise, maintaining healthy eating. I happen to really like healthy food and enjoy cooking, but I have to be careful that it doesn't just become yet another thing that I do on autopilot.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a lot about being more mindful in actually balancing achievement and celebration. So allowing ourselves the space to feel okay about, oh, I just got that thing finished, so I'm going to cook something extra special, or I'm going to go for a nice walk in a different place that I don't normally go. Whatever, just on a simple level, feeling better about balancing achievement and reward, achievement and reward.
Yeah, good. I've been listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza's stuff recently around Rewired, and I find that he talks a lot about that connection between mind and body and stuff, and that in order to change your thinking and your actions and stuff, you actually need to do something a bit different. And so I've been actively trying to actually make some of those changes, a bit like you're saying, let's go for a walk in a different place. Let's think a bit differently, because his argument is 90% of your thoughts are the same. So therefore 90% of your actions are going to be the same. If you want to make some big change, you've probably got to make some changes in the way you think. And that's also linked to the way you act and what you do. So yeah, really powerful stuff. Okay, cool. I just think that's a really important piece. So this morning, a bit of a late start, apologies for that, but we've worked through a quick 90-day plan. So, encourage you to sort of to get, to think about that. Take some time to think about, just this piece here of, are you burning bright or starting to burn out? Be really careful that you look after yourself, and it's that, the goose on the golden egg piece. You're the goose. You want to make sure you're looking after it, so you keep making the golden eggs. All right. So look after yourself, because you're often the engine that drives everything in your business. We're all, I think all of us are solopreneurs. So really important that we look after ourselves in this space. So just a few things coming up that I've got coming up you might be interested in. So as I mentioned, we've got my focused execution book, which I've just put out, which is the I guess the why as to and some of the higher level thinking around mindset and stuff that I've used to actually take my productivity, halve the amount of time I work for just on twice the income, and it's the thinking around that packaged up with, I guess, this 90-day planner, which is where we go from 90 days, 90-day plans to monthly plans, to weekly plans, daily plans, all that sort of stuff. And that's the cascade that I use now. So I would take this 90-day plan, I would map out a monthly plan. You would just go back and have a quick look at it. Pretty simple, same big rocks and everything else, but I just focus on what are the strategic actions I'm going to focus on, and the actions I'm going to focus on in this month coming up, in this next month. So really it's just a cascade from the one above. It's not a big planning exercise. It's just looking at the 90-day plan and go, right, what parts of that plan am I going to do this month and get stuck into it? So, I've just set all that up for my business in October. So I've got the October plan that I'm working on, all that sort of stuff. And then each week, and I find this is the most important plan that I do every week, is the weekly plan. My big rocks are the same. They cascade from the 90-day and the monthly plan. But then this is the point where I start to incorporate in not only the strategic stuff that's on my plan, but also the operational stuff that's day to day. That's client meetings, client workshops, client plans, all that sort of stuff. I start to build all that into this as well. What's the stuff I must get done in this next week? And it might be preparing for a workshop that's 2-3 weeks out, a month out. So starting that sort of process. So that's work. So I try and build in the must, should, coulds. I rarely put coulds in, but occasionally I do. Must, should, coulds into this next week, because then when I get to my daily plan, I can go, righto, what are the musts, right? What are the things I must do? What are the things I should do this, today? 3 or 4, maybe 5 if you have to, musts. Here's, we talked about a Pomodoro timer. This is where I put in the number of Pomodoros I think it's going to take me, and then I tick off those, so I start to get some calibration on how well I am at estimating how long times go. And then over here is just tick it off that it's done. So they're the most important parts. A bit of reflection on at the start of the day, what I'm grateful for, what my attention is, and then a bit of a wrap up at the end of the day. This is part of my ritual at the end of the day. How did today go? Right? So what was my, how did I rate today? Was it really good? What was my mood today? Because often they're correlated. I have a poor mood, I can often have a poor day. What did I think went well? What didn't go so well? Is there anything I need to change? And are there any priorities I need to make sure that popped up today that pop up tomorrow? So that's the process that I run through to go from a 90-day plan to an action plan. Okay. And then, there's videos and all sorts of stuff in here to support you along that journey. The other thing I've been doing is using AI a lot. And what I found is most people have really struggled with what questions to ask it. So I've put together about 20 AI prompt libraries, which are just a series of prompts in a whole range of different areas, which are targeted for different businesses, for consulting businesses and accounting businesses and lawyers and all sorts of other things, manufacturers and stuff. That is all just around, I built them for my clients basically. That is just around the things I need to do to be successful. And therefore, it's broken up into marketing and it's very industry specific, but they're prompts that help you do them. And all I do is cut and paste a prompt out of there and plug it into ChatGPT, tailor it to be specific to the context and the thing that I want, and then hit go. And I'm finding I get really good results out of it because I'm asking better questions. Now I'm going to start running on the Friday, the 31st of October, series of 60-minute webinars, and we're going to focus on just AI for business and just talk about how you can use AI to help you with things like strategy and planning, sales and marketing, productivity, people. How do you roll it out across your business, that sort of stuff. So we're going to do a series of those every week starting in October, and we'll do 4 or 5 of them in this year. And if we get enough interest in them, we'll keep rolling them out next year. But I'm just finding that this is a topic that I'm spending a lot of time talking to clients about, and we're getting lots of good ideas. So I want to share some of that with people along the way. And we'll sending out details for register for those going forward. All right. So next steps from today: finalize your plan, set up your Q2 plan, map it out, print it out. I suggest you do a couple of things with it. Print it out, put it on the wall. Even if you're a digital person, wherever you go, it's quite useful to put it on the wall behind your, in a prominent place in your office where you can view it regularly and look at it, so it's front of mind for you. I make sure I have an electronic version on every device, so I put mine into OneNote, and therefore I have it on my phone, my tablet, and on my laptop. So just finalize the plan. So, we've been through this stuff fairly quickly today. I would encourage you to just finalize the plan and get it done. I don't care if it's a rough and quick and dirty plan. That's all right with it. I just think it's important that you write something down, because as soon as you write it down, you take it out of your brain and all of a sudden it's concrete, right? And all of a sudden it's something you can stop and review and look at. If you leave it in your brain, it changes. It changes as you change and the environment changes and things change, and you often lose perspective quickly, right? So write it down, because then you can go back and have a look at it and go, how far out were my assumptions on making up this plan?
Russ, just a quick question on that slide. What's those M2, M1? Did I miss something on that?
I either put in the name of the month, November or whatever. I put in month 1, month 2, month 3, and the quarter.
Oh, I see. Okay, got you. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So that works. Yeah. So then,
and sorry, Russ, I also had a question about that numbering system. So
yeah.
2.3.1.1, I can see it's rock number 2. I wasn't sure what the 3, how that came into it. Was that month 3? Oh, no.
Sorry, yeah, this is probably a little bit confusing. I should probably fix that up. It's on the annual operating plan. I actually have another layer in here, which is
okay.
1.1 or 1.2, and so I only bring across the stuff that's relevant in this strategic plan.
Right, that's come from somewhere else. Okay,
yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. I probably should clarify that in these,
okay.
because not everybody will have an annual plan in this space. But yeah,
okay, thank you.
That's where that comes from. Okay, so let's just go here. So the other thing I want you to do is finish your plan off. If you can do it today, even better. Over the weekend, just as good. And then middle of next week, pull it out and see if it still makes sense, right? Because often we do this planning and we're in the mood and we've got things going down, we're writing good ideas and it's all fantastic. But when you stop, prop, and look at it in the cold, hard day light of day, you sometimes go, what was I thinking? That's just too much. And I built a marketing plan just a little while ago for this next quarter, and I put it away and I pulled it out, and I was going through it with my coach, and, and I just went, I think I've been way too optimistic here on what I can actually do and what will make sense going forward. And he said, yeah, you probably have, Russ. Glad you see that, because I built way too much into it. At the time, it all seemed like perfectly doable and all real, but once I'd actually thought about it, I thought, yeah, just too much, way too much. So I deleted a whole heap of stuff out of it. All right, so take the time to just stop and prop and reflect on it. If you'd like, I'm more than happy for you to send me a copy of it, and I'll give you some feedback on your plan. So just please, take a photo of it, email it to me, text it to me, whatever you want to do. More than happy to help you out. Remember to cascade your plans. This 90-day plan is just the start. You've now got to get down to a daily plan. So really, really drive that. Plenty of resources on the website to help you out. I understand a few of the links are broken at the moment. We'll go and check those. I'll get my IT going to that today. And we're just going to, just make sure that you're using all the resources at your fingertips, but keep your plan really simple and to the point. Okay. Now, I'm also taking on new clients at the moment. So I've got, as I've, spoke about on the other night, I've built all this capacity into my business, and instead of being off riding around the countryside riding motorbikes, I probably thought I should take on a few more clients. So if you're interested, more than happy to have a chat with you about that, and see whether I'm a good fit for you. Everything I do is fixed price, monthly retainers. Most of that information is on the website. So have a look at it. And if you're interested, please give me a call. But thank you very much for today. Really appreciate your support and coming along. I will put out a recording of this. Thank you very much for your time. Apologies for the complete stuff up with the timing this morning, and I appreciate you being patient with me there. But I wish you a great weekend, and if any time I can give you a hand with any of this stuff, please just, I'm serious about it. If you want to send me a copy of your plans or whatever, then I'm more than happy to give you some feedback on them. Okay. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.